Good morning all, welcome back to Silver and Sew. Today we have all of our star blocks that we have completed. We have some bigger ones there, and then we have these smaller ones. And then of course we have the big carpenter star, which will be the center. So we're going to go ahead and get these ready to piece together. So we know from the size of our carpenter star block, we have a carpenter star. The carpenter star was 25 inches, so we need to make each of our squares 12 and a half. So when we sew them together, they are the width of the carpenter star. So we're going to go ahead and put these down, measure how big they are. It would be 8 inches by 8 inches. So we know that we're going to need another 4.5 inches added on between the two sides. So we're going to divide the 4.5, so it comes out to 2 1/4. So we need 4 strips that are 2 1/4, one for each side. So the first two are only going to have to be as long as the block, and the second two are going to have to be as wide as that strip, which is 2 1/2, plus the width or the length of the block. So these two will be 8 inches, and these two will be 12 1/2. So we're going to go ahead and cut some 2 1/2 strips out of our background fabric and get ready to put these together. I come across, I have a couple strips left over from doing the stars, so I just got one laid down as 20 inches. So we'll go ahead and cut the first two pieces, which were 8 inches each, out of the strip. So there's one. And there's our second one. So I am saving all the little pieces as well. I have a few different ones up here that we can use for the smaller stars when we get to them. Okay, so the other ones needed to be 12 1/2. There's one of them. And then I still have these big triangles that we used on the star block there. So I'm going to go ahead and lay that out. We'll go up to the 2 1/2 mark from the bottom, which is right about there. And we'll cut that off. And it's the same on this side. And we're going to mark 2 1/2, and then we're going to mark it back. So we got our 2 1/2 inch lined up all the way along. Then we'll go ahead and cut that strip off. And then we will count back 12 1/2 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 1/2. Okay, so we have all of our pieces cut. So we are just going to take these here. And I will have to bring these to the ironing board one time good before we get them sewn together. But we're going to put those together. Now, mind you, it will have the 1/4 inch seam allowance on there yet. So these won't go all the way down to the bottom. So our stars should look like this. By the time we get them all sewn together, they'll measure 12 1/2. So we're going to go through all of our piles and do that with them. Out of all of our stars, I'm going to save the small ones for last to see how many we need to go around that carpenter star. But we're going to get started with, and I'll iron these two on the way, but we're going to flip those over. We're going to line up that edge on both the top and the bottom. And then we're just going to take, well, you can pin it into place if you want. Then we're just going to take a 1/4 inch seam all the way along on both sides. And then we'll open those up and iron those flat. And then we'll come back and we'll add the second pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and get this ironed and get those sewed on, and I'll meet you back here. I have that sewn on, and I just ironed. I know we generally iron towards the dark, but this time I went towards the light because that's a less bulk in it. So I just went ahead and went towards the light, and it looks fine to me. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to get these other two attached. So we're just going to flip that over, and you can see that it is long enough now with that 12 1/2 inch strip. The seam did take that up. So we'll go ahead and throw a couple pins in here. Okay, we'll do the same with this side. The opposite, so like if it hangs over on this end, then I'll make it hang over on that end the next time. So you're sewing in opposite directions. I'm going to go ahead and I'm take a 1/4 inch seam on both seams. I'll iron those open and then I'll meet you back here. Attach an iron flat, and you know I can't make it through a day without a mistake. So when I figured the 2.5 inches, I actually should have figured bigger, because we are about 1 inch shy on our square. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this one down to 11.5 inches. And I think it'll be fine. We'll just put an extra strip on the top of that when we connect it to another one of the background, and that's quite all right. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to trim this up. Mark. Just be sure when you're trimming, you're taking equal amounts off of each side, and then it'll turn out just fine. So there's our first star done. So I'm going to work throughout the day. I have to duck in and out of my sewing room with kids here. I'm going to work throughout the day to get all these up to the same size. And I think I'm just going to stay with 11.5, and then we'll add some sashing in between at the 1 inch strip. Well, we'll cut them 1.5, but it'll be 1 inch strips in between. Maybe I can use a color that will make it pop, a unison color throughout the quilt. So I'm going to go ahead and get these done into 11.5, and then we'll get it all laid out and see how it looks before we add in these the smaller ones wherever we need them. Okay, all of our blocks are built up to 11.5 inches across and up and down the 11.5 inch squares. So that is our carpenter star. That's 25. So we're going to need a 1 inch strip between these. And I'm also going to put that same 1 inch strip between the blocks. So it'll be all the way around the carpenter star and then also between all the blocks. So we're going to have 4 on this row, 4 on the top row, and then we'll have 2 on each side, and that will give us a 50-inch by 50-inch quilt top. However, I'm going to do a border of the green as well. It's a sage green color with some scrolls, really pretty. So I'm going to go ahead and do a border with that as well around the whole outside of the top, which will raise it up. So it'll be a fairly good size quilt. Go ahead and get this green iron flat. And get our strips cut out. I'm not sure what size. I got to figure all that out yet. And then when we come back, I will let you know what size we needed and for where. Then we'll start getting our blocks put together. We are working on our rows here. So I've got the second one done, which will go on this side of the carpenter star. But as you can see, this one's not attached yet, but these are the green is attached to those end ones. So I'm thinking we actually need to take that green strip and go all the way around that carpenter star. You can see that I got a little excess at the top of that one where the green is. And then we got quite a bit of excess right there. I'm going to put another 1 inch strip to make up that difference on there. I haven't decided yet. So I'm working on getting it figured out. So right now I have a 3-inch strip. It's cut 3.5, but 3-inch strip between the 2 squares for the sides. And then these here were cut at 1.5 to put in between. And then when we do the top row and put the 4 stars together, I'll do a 1-inch strip between each of those as well, cut at 1.5 inch. So I'm going to go ahead and work some more on getting this figured out and getting some more together. And then I'll meet you back here. So I have that one sewn on now. So what I did was I took 1.5 inch strips for the inside here, 3-inch strips for there, and then because I only needed a little over 1/2 inch on those, I just went ahead and I made these 1 inch wide, or no, 1 1/4. I'm sorry, I made these 1 1/4 inch wide to equal the distance of 20 foot. Well, about 26 inches that I ended up with on the sides. So now I'm going to go ahead and connect this other side over here. So I will show you what I did to do that. So let me back you up here. So all I did is lined up, because we want the strip closest to the, or we want the strip towards the white, so it kind of frames in the center square, the carpenter star. We're just going to go ahead and line that up on the corners, and I threw a quick pin on each corner just to make sure that stays lined up while we put the rest into place. Okay, then I just grabbed where the pins are and I pulled tight, kind of shook it out, laid it down, and then pull your fabric back on the top piece to line up with your center without shifting it from side to side, and go ahead and throw a quick pin in there. And we're going to do the same in a couple other spots. Okay, then we'll pick it up and pull on it a little bit again. And line up the middle sections in between each of the pins we currently have in there. Pins are there when you're sewing along, if you, because the top, you know, is manipulated by the way it sews down. Don't feel obligated that you can't pull a pin and loosen or tighten it. Just kind of go along with it. Just make sure in the end that that lines up at your end there. So we're just going to go ahead and take a 1/4 inch seam all the way along. We'll open that up, iron it flat, and then we'll start working on the rows for here, which will be a total of 4 of the blocks that we have here. So I'm going to go ahead and get this sewn up, iron it flat, and lay the blocks out and see what looks good where. We are going to put a we'll cut it at 1.5 inch strip, but one in between each of the 4. So we'll have 3 strips total on each top and bottom. So we'll go ahead and get this done, and then I'll bring you back here to show you that. We have all that sewn together and ironed flat. I'm sorry, I don't have a big enough space here. Even if I stood back, oh, there you go. That's a little bit better view. It is partially covered in the corner there, but you can see how whoop, there we go. You can see how this is squared in with that green trim, and I think that's really going to help set the squares apart. And then on the bottom rows, of course, you'll have the narrow, and then you have the strips. So I got my square rows laid out here. There's 4 in a row. They will have the strip in between each one. I think that's going to be a 1-inch strip. I'm not 100%. I am going to try to make that middle one, just like those middle ones are much wider. I'm going to try to keep the ones on the edges really narrow, so I can try to put that middle row. So coming off that star, we're going to have that wide one, and hopefully off the top and the bottom and the center too, because that will kind of balance it out. So I'm going to go ahead and get the side ones sewn together with a 1-inch strip and go from there and see what I can come up with for the middle, if I can make that at least a little bit wider so it stands out like they do in the one on the wall already. So I will get that done, and I will meet you back here before we start sewing it together. So I believe I got it figured out. So we have our 4 blocks here that we're going to use on one row. We need 2 of those. So I have the 1 1/4 inch strip here, which is the same one that we put on the sides here. And then these ones were 1 inch there. So we're going to use those in between 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And then I have one cut that is the same size as these, which is 3.5. I believe. Let me double check that. Yep, 3.5. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew these 2 first and these 2 next. And then I'm going to get them ironed flat, and I'm going to measure them out and see what the total length is. We got to come up with 49 inches total to go across the carpenter star piece. So then we'll maybe have to cut this one down to 3 inches, but maybe not. So I'm going to go ahead and get those sewn together, and then I'll get that last piece cut down if I need to and get that sewed in and measure and make sure we're at 49 inches. And then we will go ahead and get the second row done like that. So I have one of these rows done here now, as you can see, and we will need 2, one for the top, one for the bottom of where the carpenter store is the center of. But going to connect them, I had a little bit extra. As you can see, it's just a little bit longer on each end. So I'm trying to fit these, line these up kind of even on both sides. And I think it's better. I didn't want to run another strip here due to the fact then we'd have a wider strip than what we got on the side. But I think I'm going to go ahead and run another continuous strip. So those lines aren't right next to each other. So when they don't line up exactly, it's not going to make much of a difference. So I think that's where we're going to end today at, is with putting these together, these rows here together. We have one more left to go. And then I'll get some strips cut out to go on that. Go together. And I'll start tomorrow's video with getting that all put together so we can get the outside border on this quilt. As always, guys, if you found this video useful, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. It really helps our channel grow. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and click that subscribe button because we'd love to have you here at Soul Granny. So thanks all. Have a good day. Bye.